Hello, everyone. Welcome to Burnt Rubber Racing, episode 10. We finally did it. We hit double digits. And to be honest with you, I was so excited we were finally going to hit this milestone last week. And now that we're here, it hardly matters to me because you know what? We are talking Dega this week. NASCAR is racing at my favorite track. You see it right there on the shirt, those of you watching along live on Periscope and YouTube, Talladega Super Speedway. We always love a good super speedway race. Zach McAdoo is with me as always, co-host of this fine program. How are you doing today, sir? I know you're excited for some Dega talk as well.
Yeah, well, can't wait. This is one of my favorite tracks there, Henry. Don't put words in my mouth. Actually, this might actually be my favorite track. 2.66 miles of just 200 miles per hour, just adrenaline. I don't know what else you could call it. Hopefully we get a great race Sunday.
That is, in a nutshell, Talladega, ladies and gentlemen. I'm almost tempted to write a column up real quick before this race and just say, hey, if you don't watch NASCAR, if you're not a NASCAR fan, and if you want to tune into a race, tune in this weekend. The Geico 500, we can't wait to break it down. We do have some other stuff we got to get through before we get there, though, including a recap of last week's NASCAR action at Richmond. We're also going to talk some news and notes, interesting storyline surrounding this weekend's race at Talladega that we've got to get to, almost a correction of what we talked about on this very show last week. So we'll dive into that. We got some IndyCar discussion coming up later in the show. We'll look back at their season opener from last Sunday and also give you some tidbits ahead of race number 2 this weekend in St. Pete. Follow Burnt Rubber Racing, like, subscribe, do all that wherever you get your podcasts. We are there, and we're also a part of the Flurry Sports Podcast Network. Every Friday, you can hear us by subscribing to the Flurry Sports Podcast. You get a segment of Burnt Rubber Racing, and that segment is going to be all about Talladega this week. So without further ado, Zach, we might as well jump into this thing here. Richmond, we'll start with the Cup Series recap. And I'm going to throw this one to you pretty quickly because my overall reaction, other than maybe the last 30 laps or so, was this was not a great race, not very entertaining, not fun to watch. Yikes. What do you got?
Yeah, we both were sitting there texting each other like, yeah, this is not a good race at all. And I don't know what it is, what happened to Richmond or whatnot, but yeah, something's definitely changed with this track, and hopefully they fix it quick.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, knowing that Richmond hosts 2 different races each season, one here in the spring, obviously. Now last year, we're going to throw last year out. It was an abnormal year. They host the spring one, and then they have one in the playoffs as well. Not a good look for a track that you're coming back to in the playoffs from this past weekend. I guess we can go chronologically here, and we'll culminate with the big finish, which is really the only excitement of the day. Denny Hamlin takes stages 1 and 2. The 11 team for Joe Gibbs Racing continues to increase their lead in the Cup Series point standings and just about every seemingly relevant statistic this season. And yet, they didn't win this race. Spoiler alert there for you. If you somehow didn't know already, they win the first 2 stages, and they can't get it done in the end. This was really basically the Denny Hamlin and his Gibbs teammate, Martin Truex Jr. It was their race the entire way. They traded the lead back and forth. Kind of just felt like, to me, Hamlin happened to be out front at the end of both stages. And I don't know. Was there anything in the first 2 stages that stood out to you that I guess might have overlooked just because I might have been falling asleep or might have been watching more IndyCar? I don't know.
Nothing really besides what we put on the rundown, like our little cheat sheet here. But it was just Hamlin running away with it, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, so what Zach E is referring to there that we did actually make note of in our limited planning that we do for this show, Brad Keselowski Interesting strategy to stay out of the pits. Took over the lead in stage 2. Everyone else pitted. They stayed out, and it became apparent pretty quickly as the laps went by that they were not going to pit at all. It wasn't a delayed strategy. Richmond, Zach, what was the, do you remember the stat exactly on green flag cautions that weren't like competition cautions?
Yeah, it was Jeff Gluck that gave this to me, so credit to him. But not to me, he tweeted it out, so I shouldn't say he gave it to me. But yeah, the last caution, natural caution that wasn't competition caution, that wasn't a stage break or anything like that, was the fall race of 2019. That was, and between that last caution and the first natural caution from Sunday was over 600 laps of green flag. Well, I shouldn't say green flag racing because you have some yellows in there still, but it was a long time between natural cautions there.
Yeah, just kind of talking to what we're saying of like what's going on with Richmond here. Endless green flag racing, we're all here for it. But when you aren't having cautions, it takes a level of, kind of what's going to come next out of it, number one. And number two, I mean, there were at one point, I believe, only 9 cars on the lead lap in this race. So that tells you how the green flag racing was going. I guess we'll see what happens in the future here with Richmond. At any rate, Keselowski decided to stay out at the end of stage 2. It really made no sense to me. He was passed very quickly by the leaders, and eventually he wound up being the car. Even though he's leading the race, he has to go up on the outside as guys in the teens and 20s. Everyone's just driving by him. Winds up getting lapped again by the leaders toward the end of the stage. Goes a lap down. Really took him out of contention to win. I think he got back on the lead lap toward the end somehow, some way. But interesting strategy call. I mean, hindsight's obviously 2020, and I'll let you say, kind of whether you agreed or disagreed with it. But just the trends of Richmond Raceway of late were enough to make me disagree with it in the act.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking, because even I get what they were thinking because they won the extra set of tires for the final stage, but there wasn't enough there was enough cars on the same strategy to rationalize it. There wasn't enough cautions to rationalize it. It just, it's one of those head scratchers that make you think, why would you do this?
Yeah, and I don't even know, to guys that pitted there, like a Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex, I'm pretty sure they didn't even use all their tires anyway, did they? Like, I mean, there weren't.
No,
maybe the last one.
They used them all because of the last caution.
Okay, so I lost count of my tires there during the race. I'll admit it. At any rate, Keselowski goes a lap down. That was pretty much all we had out of the first couple stages. Stage 3 pretty much started the same way. Truex and Hamlin out front. Now, Truex did have a pit road speeding penalty, and that put him on the tail end of the lead lap. More or less, I guess you can argue, might have put the damper on his chances to win the thing. Now, he was able to stay on that lead lap and got a solid finish out of it. Kyle Busch was running well. We talked on this show last week. Both of us kind of liked the value in 9-1 odds on Busch to win, given his history at Richmond. And then he goofed up. What did you see there? And I feel like it's not the same thing every week, but it's the same kind of fluky errors that are just killing this 18 team right now.
I wouldn't say it's so much of an error as much as it was him trying to go for it all, and just he took a home run swing and he missed on a 2-strike count, and it was just I agree with what he did try to do, but you got to pull down before then, and it ended up costing him. I believe he went back and I think he stayed on the lead lap because of Hamlin, but it just not the right move, I think.
Yeah, so he tries to floor it into the pits, misses the box, and That's a hefty penalty. So that pretty much took him out of contention as he was running top 5. Kyle Busch would go on to finish this race in 8th. And, we felt like we were cruising kind of to a foregone conclusion in this race. And then Kevin Harvick, who was running on the lead lap, I'll give Stewart-Haas Racing some credit. Had a couple drivers put it together this weekend, finally. Not the same Stewart-Haas we've been seeing, but Harvick, air pressure goes down in his tire. He's into the wall. Caution comes out. We have a late race pit stop bonanza once again with, I believe it was just over 30 to go at this point.
No, it was like 20 to go when the caution came out.
Was it?
It was
okay.
It was deep in there.
Yeah. So this gets good all of a sudden, and we see race off pit road. Alex Bowman's the guys to watch in 3rd. When this race restarted, I don't know. Did you see Bowman making a move like that? Did you see Albarola in 4th talking about Stewart-Haas Racing? Eric Albarola finally puts together a solid run. He restarted 4th here at the end. Did you think either of those guys actually had a shot to make a move on Hamlin out front?
No, in all honesty, I didn't see it coming. I thought it was going to be between Logano and Hamlin, and once Logano spun the tires, it's like, oh great, Hamlin won this race.
And then he didn't. Home track racing, Denny Hamlin has it ripped away from him here at the end again. And this time I felt like there was really nothing he could do. Like maybe you could say, okay, Bristol, he tried to run it high and it didn't work, right? And maybe there's another one in there where if he wanted to be aggressive and put the bumper on somebody, he could have. This one, Alex Bowman just drives right by. There was talk that it was an air pressure strategy on that final pit stop that gave him the boost he needed. It's a good thing this race ended when it did, because that 48 car almost went across the finish line sideways. He was loose as heck coming out of turn 4 on that final lap. But Bowman comes out of nowhere, steals this thing. I'll say it. I know some people don't like saying you stole a race because you had to be there at the end. You had to put in a day's worth of work to be there. Alex Bowman stole this race. I mean, the strategy was pretty awesome to me. Anything else you want to break down from those final 20 laps? Because like you said, neither of us saw this coming when we were watching this thing live.
No, I mean, you go back and you look, Bowman was 13 seconds behind Hamlin and Logano when the caution came out. So, I mean, you think that it was over, and then Harvick made a mistake, and Bowman pounced on it.
100%. We'll get into more of why it's kind of cool that the 48 car finally got back into victory lane here this past Sunday when it did a little later on. Looking at the final results of this race, we can see if there's any other names we want to bring up here. Now, again, it felt like, I want to say 13 cars finished this thing a lap down. So your top dozen were on the lead lap at the end. At any rate, Denny Hamlin does get the runner-up, finishing 2nd. Again, earns the most points of anyone in the field. I mean, unless we have 16, 17 winners, Hamlin's going to be fine to make the playoffs. But this 11 team, they're out there to win races. And he was definitely frustrated. Just look at his Twitter.
It rhymes with duck.
After this race. So, interesting listening to analysts and such talk this week around the sport. One take that I heard a couple different times is, okay, they've come so close here in a few races in a row, right? They're running the best out of anyone. They have an average finish of like 4.2 or something on the season. It's ridiculous. And yet they still haven't won. Denny Hamlin's obviously frustrated, like you said, that tweet after the race. The team has got to be frustrated. They had the winning pit stop on that on the late race caution to get him out in front of Joey Logano and be the control car on the restart. And it feels like this could go one way or another, right? Like it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, if that frustration sets in, could that be a negative factor for the 11 team going forward when you know you're so close? And at what point do you start getting maybe a little uptight, or the frustration becomes it's not motivating anymore when you know you should be winning these races. I don't know. I think it's a compelling argument. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you yes, I have a point there. And if it was a guy who hasn't been winning as much as Hamlin in their careers, like if you give me an Albarola, a Stenhouse, someone like that, I'd say yeah, maybe. But Hamlin knows he's been there a lot, and especially with I think him and his crew chief have been there a while, especially last year when they won freaking 8 times it seemed like, and so they can get it done. When they get it done is the big question, and maybe it's this weekend. Hamlin is great at Talladega. He went from 3rd 2 weeks ago, 2nd last week. Progression's there.
Yeah, and he's starting on the pole. He's the betting favorite. We'll get into all that later when we jump over to Dega. But it is going to be interesting, I think, to see how this goes. And moving forward, I'm going to look past Talladega, I think, just because anything can happen on a super speedway. But keep an eye on this 11 team as far as the trajectory. We'll see how things play out there. But they do seem to be a bit snake bitten here this season after, like you said, winning so many races last year. Diving back into these finishing results, it was a good day overall for Joe Gibbs, kind of what we expected at Richmond. Christopher Bell and Martin Truex Jr. rounded out the top 5 behind Joey Logano. So they have 3 drivers in the top 5. Eric Almirola, 6th place finish, their best by far of the season. William Byron, another Hendrick driver, top 10 finish. In 7th, he continues to be consistent week in, week out. Kyle Busch wound up 8th. Matt DiBenedetto, that's a name that I'm sure you might want to touch on. In 9th, he was on the lead lap all day. Great to see out of the Wood brothers, 21 there. And Austin Dillon rounded out the top 10. Any of those guys you want to throw a little more out there on? Anyone else not in the top 10 that you also had thoughts on from Sunday?
I thought, I don't know why I picked Blaney for my FanDuel lineup because he's always been terrible here. I guess it's because he did well at Martinsville. So we'll throw him a bone. Maybe he does well here. And 3 laps down, I think he was 2 or 3, and back closer to 20 than he was 10th. It was just bad day for him. Hopefully he rebounds this week.
Yeah, he finished, where do we have him? He did finish 11th, so rallied a bit there toward the end. But like you said, he started strong, was in the top 5, and then it was just all downhill from there after he passed a couple guys early on. So we'll see if Team Penske as an organization can have a little better super speedway showing than they did back in February. Anything else from the Cup at Richmond that you wanted to point out, or should we touch on the trucks here real quick?
I think we should get to the trucks.
All righty. John Hunter Nemechek manages to beat his boss, Kyle Busch, once again. Kyle Busch Motorsports continues to absolutely rule the NASCAR Truck Series. Another win here for Nemechek. What else happened in this race, Zach? Because, not going to lie, it's final season, and I might not have been able to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, so Jennifer Jo Cobb and Norm Betting, the 2 legends of the Truck Series, spun each other out, and it turned into a little bit of a poop show. So as far as I'm concerned, I think they each got their shot in, and this might go into something we get into here in a couple seconds.
All right, so I guess we'll stay tuned for that. I believe the combined age then in that beef is over 100. Am I correct on that? Norm Benning's what?
I don't
60, know. I feel like he's 60. I gotta look this up now.
Jennifer Jo. Jennifer Jo's just she's up there.
Norm Benning's 69. That is definitely over 100. We're pushing 110, I think.
Yeah, she's 47.
Oh, so we'll do, yeah.
I knew she was high 40s, so.
Interesting beef, I would say, to say the least, compared to some of the other ones we've seen this season. At any rate, John Hunter Nemechek gets the win. I got to say, I'm surprised anytime Kyle Busch is in a truck race and he doesn't win. Was this a scenario where it kind of felt like maybe he let him get the win again, almost like some people were trying to suggest at Vegas, or were they racing hard?
Oh no, Kyle Busch was definitely going to push John Hunter out of the way if he got to him. So Hunter Nemechek earned this one, and he's got 2 wins going forward now.
Yeah, he is in good shape for the Truck Series playoffs. And if we look here at their next race, it'll be the 1st of May at Kansas. So they have got a week in between to prepare for that. The Xfinity will be back in action at Talladega this weekend, along with the Cup Series, as we jump into some other news and notes from around NASCAR here. This first one, Zach, we pulled up the stats last week. You did on her Truck Series career. We were both a little, shall we say, skeptical of the decision of one Rick Ware to call Jennifer Jo Cobb up to run in the Cup Series race at Talladega. That would have been her first career Cup Series start. Well, that is no longer happening. I haven't seen any reports from mainstream media on the ultimate happenings here, even though they were quick to jump on it last week. Anyways, she is out. JJ Yaley will be in the 15 for Rick Ware Racing this Sunday. NASCAR deeming her unfit to compete. I mean, it sucks, but it's the reality.
Yeah, and what's happened is NASCAR, I feel like it's going to be more on the safe side, because with no practice, she's not going to have a lot of seat time in a Cup car. So that's one thing that it's like, yeah, they're not going to let her go 200 miles an hour around the track like this. Harrison Burton is also making his debut Sunday. He got approved, but he has like a couple of top 5s on restrictor plate, tapered spacer tracks, or no, there's still plates in Xfinity, I believe. So blind plate tracks at Xfinity. So yeah, I believe that is why. There are other people that think that Jennifer Jo Cobb and Norm Betting's happenings last week are what forced NASCAR's hand in telling her, yeah, kick rocks, you're not coming this week. So we'll see. I don't know. I believe it's the first and then the latter.
Interesting. So it is kind of funny how that all played out. Getting in a little dust up, and NASCAR saying, nope, you're going to have to wait on that Cup Series debut. But like you said, she doesn't even have a single career top 10 in the Truck Series, correct? So to think that she's going to be able to compete in inferior equipment. Now, I know you have the draft, but like I said last week, after you rattled off those stats, okay, Rick Ware was not even keeping up with the draft at Daytona. What makes us think they're going to be able to do it this week, at least all of those cars? Push comes to shove. I have to say I agree with the decision. I hope that she gets to make a Cup Series debut at some point, but you got to be a quality driver. You got to be the best drivers in the world to race in that series. So,
especially here, because yes, you're just trying to like stay in the draft and whatnot is here, but 200 miles an hour, one mistake could be bad. And we saw that last year with Ryan Newman, and we've seen that in the past with Kyle Busch and others. Like, it's life and death when you come to these speeds.
Yeah, absolutely. Talladega is on the record as the fastest track. It had the fastest race. That's a super speedway race for you. So we'll see, I guess, what kind of comes of this down the road. At any rate, jumping to some other news from around the series here. We got the weekly penalty report, Zach. We're always doing this. We had 3 teams docked for lug nut violations from the Richmond race this past weekend. William Byron being one of them, so top 10 finish there. Rudy Fugle, $10,000 fine for you, sir. The other one who, we made fun of him last week. We did. We made fun of him. It was in the title, picking on. We made fun of him. I don't think Cody Ware caused a caution at Richmond. Not even Cody Ware could bring out the yellow flag at Richmond Raceway. It was someone else who finally broke that streak of natural cautions.
Newman. It was Newman
Ryan
and Harvick. Yeah, my guy. Look at my guy to bring out a caution for Cody Ware does. That's what sucks. We say here, said joking about it. You said, "Oh yeah, give me your money and don't bet on Cody Ware." And
well, he didn't win the race, so that caution prop. I don't think anyone was actually offering that. Although the under would have hit on, what did we say, half or 1.5. I think we had both options out there. Cautions caused by Cody Ware. He didn't cause any, but he had a lug nut violation, $10,000 fine to his crew chief. And then in the Camping World Truck Series, John Hunter Nemechek also had a lug penalty, $2,500 fine down at the lower level series. What else do we have here? Chris Buescher and Roush Fenway Racing, rough weekend for them at Richmond. We both were trying to pick and choose our spots where we could maybe find some value on those guys, and neither he nor Newman, who we just referenced, brought out that caution to end the streak. A miserable day for both of them. Well, at any rate, Buescher and the RFR 17 have a new primary sponsor. It is Autotempest.com, and they'll be on the main paint scheme for the car in 2 races this season, debuting at Kansas next week. And they'll run again at Circuit of the Americas. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see this design?
I didn't see the scheme yet. I'll wait to see it on a track just because I've been big on, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, that scheme is bad, and then be like, oh, maybe it's not so bad in person or on TV. But so I guess I'll wait, because who knows? I might actually like it in the end.
Yeah. By the way, Zach did throw out the Justin Allgaier Darlington scheme from the podcast Twitter. So make sure you're following us at Burnt Rub Racing on Twitter. And that bad boy is pretty sick indeed. So go check that out.
There's another one I liked. I'm gonna have to look. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Any other news that we needed to touch on? Did you have anything else?
Not news-wise, I don't think.
Okay, it's kind of been a quiet week, I think, for the most part around NASCAR. We're just gearing up for this weekend, and that's where we are headed right now. Talladega, baby, let's go. Second super speedway race of the year, the Geico 500. Of course, the first one was the Daytona 500. And, you know, Zach, they say this is arguably NASCAR's 5th crown jewel. Technically,
well, it's actually going to be 4th now.
Exactly. There's no Brickyard 400 on the actual Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year. So, Geico 500, welcome to the big boy club. I'm putting you in there.
Yeah, and anyone who says that the Indy road course is a crown jewel, you can just take a long walk off a short pier, because there's no helping you. It's the road course is not as not as historic as the oval. The oval takes precedence over the road course. Get it at me on Twitter. I don't care. We'll fight. Let's go.
Send me your $1 too on Venmo.
Yeah, my Venmo is now on Twitter. Thanks to you. But I actually, we'll put the Geico 500 because we like this track better. I was good between this and the Bristol Night Race, but we'll both say Talladega, I think.
I feel like it's got to be Dega, especially when it's like already borderline. You know, you kind of want to have it in there already. Anyway, we are both super hyped, as you can tell, for Talladega this weekend. Zach, why don't you break down the details, any historical info that you think is interesting on the 2.66, do I have that right?
Yeah.
Mile super speedway.
All right, so there's going to be I'll bring up 2 things that I thought were interesting doing my research for the article that will come out either later tonight or tomorrow. But so turns 1 and 2 are banked at 33 degrees.
I mean, they might be ranked too. I don't know. Are they?
Yeah, who the hell knows?
We rank in turns at these tracks.
Shut up. And then turns 3 and 4 are actually 32.5 degrees banked, which that felt funny to me. Like I couldn't even tell the difference every time I played NASCAR. But the other thing that I found interesting is that there's actually a Talladega Curse, because
All right, you got to dig into this a little more for us. What do we got?
There are three like reasons why, or like three different scenarios that people have laid out. One of them was that the track was an old Native American horse racing track, where one Native American was thrown from the horse, died, and the track's been cursed ever since then. There's another one that says that the track was built on a Native American burial plot, or burial graveyard, whatever you want to call it. That's why it's cursed. And then the third one is that Andrew Jackson.
Oh, there's a name from the past.
Yeah,
Flash from the past.
Like the 1820s. But like something.
Remember him?
Something. Yeah, definitely during our lifetimes, huh? But something about how he brought in a shaman, and the shaman cursed the area where the track was at. So yeah, those are the three scenarios of what may have happened. And I was reading through everything like that's happened. There's like so much death and injuries and stuff like that. So it's like, it's plausible.
Wow. So I guess my follow-up question is, how does this curse, does it impact us racing, or are you just hearing spooky noises when you're at the track the night before, or like have drivers had any
There's one example I'll bring up. Back in 1973, I don't remember the guy's name. I don't remember either of the guys' names, but the one guy died in the race from 1973, and then later in the race, there's another guy who pulled off the track and stopped, like quit racing for the rest of the year after like in the middle of the race, and he said, something told me that I need to pull off the track and call it. And that could be the curse. Like maybe he heard, like the curse got in his head and he just decided to quit.
This is quality journalism and podcasting right here. Talladega might be cursed. Who knew? I'm gonna watch this race through a whole nother lens now. Like this weekend, like I'm gonna be looking. Like, is there any shadows like in the different ranked turns, or like where are we at here? Good stuff on the super speedway. A little bit more as we start to transition into trying to, I guess, handicap and look at this race from a DFS perspective. Of course, whenever you got a super speedway tapered engine spacer race, it is about as unpredictable as it gets. You got the draft, you got pack racing. As long as you're there at the end and you avoid the big ones. You do have big ones, that is for sure. Hopefully this one's not 14 laps into the race and takes out 10 cars. I would like to see 40 cars going around the track at almost 200 miles an hour instead of.
That's not going to happen anyways. We have Rick Ware Racing in the field. By the way, go ahead and put that lineup together. I know you're going to do
it. Man, I feel bad for Rick Ware Racing.
Dude, Rick Ware, I'm sorry, man, but come on, we need better equipment for these guys.
You know, they have a Ford actually. They're running out this week too.
There's like three.
With all the Chevrolets.
There's 3 Chevys and a Ford. Like, come on, my guy.
They don't even have the same manufacturer across the garage.
What does he run in IndyCar? That might be a Honda. So he's running 3 different. Might be. I don't quote me on that. I wasn't paying attention enough to the IndyCar race because I had to watch the NASCAR race for this.
Sorry, Rick Ware. Anyways, man, we got Ghost. We've got Rick Ware. We're already saying they're not going to be in the draft.
Listen, we already talked shit
Cobb is not in the race.
About Cody Ware, so
okay. Talladega Super Speedway. Zach already touched on it. 2.66 miles in length. That is the longest oval on the Cup Series circuit. Now we do have road courses that are longer at this point, but when we're talking about, normal tracks, because some of us around here aren't big road race fans, not looking at Zach with that one, but Talladega is longer than Daytona. It is the longest oval. Obviously similar to Daytona in that they are the super speedways and they have the draft, they have pack racing. And if you avoid the big one, like we said, and you're there at the end, you have got a shot. Just ask Michael McDowell, our Daytona 500 winner this year. He cashed at 66 to 1. You just got to be there in the end. Now, that said, there is a lot of strategy and skill that goes into effective draft pack racing. So some guys are better in this than others, and we can look at driver stats and such to kind of get a feel for that. But timing, positioning, teamwork is a big thing. Team Penske, who, let me get the number correct here. Team Penske drivers have won 3 of the last 5 editions of the Geico 500, so that being the spring Talladega race. They're known for really working together well. You add in their affiliate team there with the Wood brothers, and they got 4 cars who know how to run up front. And we saw that here at Talladega last year with those cars. Ryan Blaney getting the win in the end of last year's spring race. Looking at some driver stats here now, average finish, that's something to note. Guys who can consistently run the laps and get around at this place and avoid the mayhem and avoid, I guess, the curse here that we got going on too. 3 have an average finish of less than 11, and that would be Eric Albarola, 10.17. Denny Hamlin, touched on him. He's the race favorite. Obviously has been the top car all season, 10.33. And Joey Logano, 10.67. We look at the last, what would this be, 6 Talladega races. So going back to the spring of 2018 race, all 3 of those guys have finished in the top 5 at least 3 times. Denny Hamlin has done it 4. And Eric Almirola has been in the top 10 in 5 of those 6 races. Zach, I guess when we look at Talladega, before we actually dive into odds and pricing for DFS for this week, aside from Rick Ware Racing, are there teams that you are automatically teams or drivers, I should say, that you're like, I'm going to be, kind of hesitant to do anything as far as picks? Are there guys, obviously, probably some of those names when we're talking Talladega are on your list as well, that you're more apt to have a little action on or lean in their favor going into a super speedway race?
Like, are you talking about like race teams or like whole, like Hendrick and them? Like
either or.
All right.
I think both are good for discussion.
Yeah.
Obviously, I just threw out Team Penske, but only Logano of those 3 drivers there with an average finish below 11 are only Logano is from Team Penske. So
no, even Team Penske is going to be one of the best teams out there. Any one of those 3, I feel like, can win the race. Maybe Hendrick. Hendrick besides Larson. Larson's probably the one, because he said he hates this type of racing. So maybe steer clear of him. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Stay away from Kevin Harvick on the plate tracks. There's something about him. He led here last year. He was leading on the final lap and gave it away at turn 4, finished 10th. That's how bad, that's how much he needs to learn how to block, and he just doesn't. I don't. And I'm saying that as like a guy who really likes Harvick, but come on, you have to learn to block if you're going to lead up front. Yeah, I don't know what more.
No, I hear you completely. I think it's interesting to note that Almirola has the best average finish and has had average start on his way to that average finish of 10.17 in the last 6 races of 25th. 13th. So he improves by 3 spots over the course of the race. I was looking at the wrong driver number there.
He came backwards last year in this race. He should have had this race won, but he got spun by Eric Jones coming to the line, and it kind of cost him.
Yeah, this was part of Almirola's summer run there, where he was like top 10 every single race, had top 5s in there, and probably Talladega was the one that he really should have come away with the checkered. Never did, and never won a race. That's how close it could be for some guys when you have super speedway racing that is so wide open. And of course, the win and you're in with the playoff scenario in most years, probably this year, but it's been a crazy year, that's for sure. Guys like an Albarola, like a Bubba Wallace, who is pretty good on plate tracks, like a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. This is a race that they're going to be gunning to win over, and they're going to have a shot to win, I think, a better shot than they would at just your average run-of-the-mill, I don't know, Richmond Raceway. But anyways, I think we could pivot to DFS here. Done a lot of good talk on the track and stats. What do you have for us? You kind of just threw out some drivers and teams that you're looking at as a whole. As far as your best play for a lineup, shall I call it, if there is such a thing this week, and then also a value play that you see as worthwhile to get in there at a cheaper price.
All right. I'm going Denny Hamlin because as your guy, a guy you have to put it in. I feel like I think he wins this week, honestly. I feel like Denny Hamlin, he's putting it all together. He's one of the best guys here at Talladega. He puts it together this week. Then we just talked about Eric Albarola. He hasn't had the greatest season so far. Got the momentum last week with a top 5, at least a top 10. I don't remember where he finished last week.
6th.
Okay, so
basically a top 5.
Yeah, almost top 5. For the way that their season's been going, it's pretty much a top 5. That's probably the team you want to put in because this guy Albarola is fantastic. Well, we talked about it just now. He's fantastic at this track. Tyler Reddick. I've talked about him a lot on this show. Talked about him pretty much every week in my DFS articles. He won a stage here last year. You have to put him in your lineup. He is that damn good here at the state Tabor Spacer tracks. And then our value play of the week. I don't know how he's this low. Michael McDowell at 5,500. Let's
go.
Cheap for a guy who's consistently up front for plate tracks. I just don't understand it. But I'm putting him in mind. Got to get that value.
As someone who vehemently defended McDowell after his Daytona 500 win.
There's 2 of us here.
Well, I don't know. You kind of came back at me on another show, and you were like, "You might have." I'll find you a receipt. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole with me and receipts. You already found that out earlier today.
Yeah, because I read the text wrong. This is different.
At any rate, if McDowell goes out and actually wins this race, I won't shut up for a week. I really won't, because there were people who were just killing him, saying he'd never win a race this year again, the rest of his career, even I saw after that 500. He goes out and wins this week. It don't matter what happens the rest of the way as far as who wins what. He'll be in with 2 wins because you got to have 2 wins to get in, and he'll be definitely top 30 in points the way they've been. It's kind of tapered off, I guess, of late, but they have been running one of their best seasons, arguably ever, for that front row motorsports team. I like all of those calls. I'm glad you mentioned Reddick. He was another guy I wanted to throw out there for sure, because after you jump down from those top 3 guys in average finish among full-time Cup drivers at Talladega, Reddick is actually 6 on that list at 13.5.
But he's also only had 2 starts. That's one thing. Maybe he had a one-off for RCR before he got in there.
Yeah, but like you said, he knows plate racing. So of Zach's 2 drivers, he is the guy to have this week. Let's just put it that way. You heard it from McAdoo himself. In terms of staying away, you're not allowed to say Kevin Harvick. You're not allowed to say anyone else. You might have already said that you're avoiding. Who are you keeping out? I'm gonna give you 2 here. Who are you keeping out that is, we're throwing him around as a guy, yeah, he can win this race, looking at the favorites and such. And also a value play that a lot of people, but the trendy dog, I guess, the trendy value play that some people might be throwing in there that you're not keen on. I'm making you work this week. It's
Yeah,
Dega, baby.
I gotta look. I loved Bubba at Daytona. I don't know about him here though, as a
Okay.
cheap guy because he's 6,500. Like, yeah, he did well at Daytona, but he also had a lot of help with Denny. Like Denny was also the Pied Piper for late in that race. Granted, Denny might be the guy here, but Bubba also survived the big one, the big crash at the start. That probably doesn't happen again, unless Bell
Is
causes
that a
it
little
again.
shot I'm sensing? Just a little jab, maybe? Because I might be inclined to agree. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit, but
All right.
and then here's two I'll actually throw out for guys to stay away from. The 18 and 19. We talked so much about, well, actually not, we haven't, but back 2-3 years ago when it was the big three of Harvick, Truex, and Kyle Busch. I always said I'm not taking either one of them to. They aren't plate racers. They're not. The three of them are not great guy. They're not great here as opposed to Hamlin, Keselowski, Logano, earlier. It's just they're not. It's just something about them. It's just I don't know what it is that they just can't figure it out.
To your point, looking at the last 6 Talladega races, okay, Kevin Harvick, average finish of 19.5, average driver rating of 74.5. I got to keep scrolling here. Kyle Busch, average finish 21.1, average driver rating 81.8. Truex, 23.5 average finish, 66.4 average driver rating. Truex has, wait for it, one top 20. That's not top 10, that's top 20 in the last 6 races.
And you want to look at for DFS, driver rating doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is spots and laps. Because you want the guys that be out there getting you that 10th of a point, getting you that point for position. So that's all you really need to look at, and they're not getting it done.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And the other thing, too, I'm assuming this is going to play out pretty similar to how Daytona did, as far as when we're running under green, you're going to see the manufacturers pit together, right? Talking about Truex, Busch, and Bubba Wallace, who you said to stay away from as a value play specifically, Toyotas they're at an automatic disadvantage.
Yeah,
they have 5 cars. So in terms of them pitting together and getting back up to speed before you get back in with the entire pack together in the draft, I don't want anything to do with Toyota there in general. Now, of course, Denny Hamlin is so good that we've seen it. It doesn't matter with him. But these other guys, I think you're exactly right. And that's just a point that I would add to further that argument. I think we hit DFS pretty sound and square. Let's jump into looking at some betting odds over at DraftKings. Denny Hamlin plus 650. This is interesting to me, Zach, because when I look at Daytona races, when I look at Talladega races, yes, the odds on the favorite are longer, and we see that here, but Denny Hamlin is a massive favorite, and might not feel as massive when we're talking about a Richmond Raceway, and the odds would obviously be shorter too. But the next guy in line is Joey Logano at 9-1. I don't know. I know Hamlin's been great. I know they've been the best team. I know he's great on super speedways. Is that much of a gap in the odds at Talladega justifiable? Because to me, it's absolutely not. And there's no way I want Hamlin at that price, even though I know you already said you think he probably has as good a shot or better than anyone to go out and win this thing.
I mean, I'm certain that Hamlin's winning. I'm not. Okay, I shouldn't say certain. Hamlin's the guy.
You can't be certain. This is Dega.
Yeah. But Hamlin's is too good here to not bet on him, I feel like. In my case, because I feel like he's going to win. So, yeah, you have to put at least some if you think he's going to win. If you think a guy's going to win, right? And then maybe find value in a McDowell or a Reddick or one of the guys I don't like that I can't think of the name of right now because I'm under pressure. But and I probably just jinxed
It's not
it too.
Truex for once, folks, that he doesn't like. So,
Well, Truex also has high odds because he's in a JGR car. So it's just one of those things.
yeah, I hear you. I guess the only way I'm going in on that price, though, when you look at the odds and everyone else, is as a hedge. If I do like you said, and I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna bet a long shot, like maybe not necessarily a really long shot, but a guy who legitimately is up there with a shot to win, has power equipment.
Corey LaJoie.
Speaking of that 7 team, they have been running well. Okay, so I don't even want to hear the disrespect for Spire Motorsports right now.
I almost put Corey LaJoie in my lineup, but I was like, I can't have two guys under 6,000 in the lineup, so I had to take them out for Kurt Busch.
Yeah, I think especially this week that's probably a good move, but keep an eye on that 7 team. I don't know. Getting back to the odds to win here, Logano's 9-1 as the runner up to Hamlin atop the list. Ryan Blaney, last year's Geico 500 winner, is 10-1. Chase Elliott 11-1, along with Brad Keselowski. Eric Albarola, who we've talked about at length, and interesting, Kyle Larson are 16-1. Alex Bowman and Kyle Busch 18-1. And we've got a trio at 20-1. William Byron, Kevin Harvick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., anyone from 20-1 down, because that's what we're doing this week at a super speedway. Not named Denny Hamlin catching your fancy there, or who could be that other guy that you're going to bet along with Hamlin, because you won't let me ignore Hamlin even at the price.
I feel like Stenhouse is a guy who runs very well here. I'm surprised to see him up that high, even though he almost won here, because the equipment's not there. But then again, the equipment doesn't matter really. So Stenhouse is a guy that if you're going to try to split, it probably should be on him.
Well, equipment does matter for Rick Ware Racing, but Stenhouse is not.
Yeah, okay.
Them.
Let me raise. You have to have equipment fast enough to keep up with draft. In their case, they can't.
That's kind of important.
JTV Gardy, they put enough money in there.
They're good there. Stenhouse is plus 130 for a top 10. I kind of like that with him. Eric Albarola, average finish just outside the top 10. He's plus 105. That would be a bet I'm definitely looking at for sure. They built a little momentum like we talked about last week. Could be another strong showing for the 10 at a track that they have typically done well at. And, William Byron, this streak of consistency they're on, I can't ignore that. Plus 130 for a top 10. I'm intrigued there as well. The Penske guys are all, you'd have to lay juice on a top 10 as you would for Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin as well. Curious, would you bite on a Denny Hamlin top 3? So we're not winning. We're not talking about winning. We're talking about top 3 where they've been at 2-1.
Ooh.
Which would you prefer? Outright win?
Outright.
Top 3?
I told you I don't do this top 3, top 10 stuff. If I'm betting on the winner.
Well, you're no fun. We're trying to make money here.
What do you think I'm trying to do?
And we're not trying to do it on a sizable favorite at a super speedway. I still can't get over the odds. Now, he may go out and win, and he may laugh in my face, and Zach will definitely laugh in his face for me next week.
Yes.
But
Henry,
there's no value there. I'm looking for value, man.
Look, we do long dong plays only. Come on, buddy.
Hindsight is 20/20, sir. Let me just put that out there for you right now. All right, looking at some of the longer shots here. Truex, who Zach said we're avoiding, and I'm inclined to agree. He's 22-1, probably about the longest odds you'll see on him all season. Fellow JGR driver Christopher Bell, 25-1, as is Kurt Busch. Your boy Tyler Reddick joins Bubba Wallace at 28-1 to win this thing. Matty D, Matt DiBenedetto, that is a name I am keeping an eye on. 30-1. Wood Brothers has some history. Granted, it was a little while ago at Talladega, but they run pretty well here. And he'll have the help of the Penske cars there as well. Being the team affiliate, Michael McDowell is 50-1. Any of those names that you're either definitely staying away from outside of Truex, of course, or can you get behind a DiBenedetto play, and also anyone else that you would be curious as to their long shot odds to win?
You took the words out of my mouth. Matty D almost won here. He probably should have won here. Hamlin should have been penalized. I don't know why Matty D was penalized. I'll probably will never understand that.
I don't either.
But Hamlin definitely stayed below the yellow way too long, and they didn't call it. This is just, I guess it was NASCAR just trying to bring some publicity, but it's bad publicity. But then again, bad publicity is good publicity. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm getting heated just talking about it. But Matty D, he could get it done this Sunday. Take a shot. And then
there you go.
All right, let me look here. What are Chase Briscoe's odds?
Chase Briscoe, 80-1, sir. Corey LaJoie's 100-1.
What about Custer?
Cole Custer, 66-1.
And Chastain.
Chastain, also 66-1.
Maybe take a flyer on Chastain because I feel like he got a top 5 in the 500, if I'm not mistaken. He was up there at the end, I feel like.
Have to go back and look up that full grid here. Not a top 5. 7th.
Okay, so I was off by 2 positions. Sue me. But
I might. LaJoie was 9th, by the way, at Daytona.
Yeah.
And also another name, I just got to cut you off and throw him out there because he is important, and he was a top 10 last week, and he's been running well. Austin Dillon is at the same price as DiBenedetto at 30-1.
Yeah, I feel like Austin's better at Daytona than he is at Talladega, though.
I agree.
I don't know if Austin can get it done here. I think Matty D has a better shot than Dillon. But back to my point, Chastain, he could get it done. He's an excellent draft guy in the draft. Even when he drove the 77 last year, he kind of messed it up, and I will never forget that. But yeah, Chastain, maybe take a flyer.
All right. So am I sensing a little Chip Ganassi love out of you in general? Because I know you mentioned Kurt Busch being in that DFS lineup of yours, the McAdoo special. Is that like a theme, or is just 2 guys you're kind of looking at here? Where both of them are priced?
It's probably a theme. I'll be honest. It's probably a theme with the 2 of them because I do like them both. But something about Kurt Busch in the draft it surprised me he only has one win on tapered spacer tracks.
Yeah, hey, if there's a week to, I guess, like Chastain, it's this week.
Because you're never gonna get. He hasn't panned out so far in the season, so gotta get started somewhere.
Yeah, and obviously, I guess I'll just kind of broad scope this here. Any of those names that we're talking about, we think there might be a little value to win. This is a super speedway race. We think there's value to win because literally anyone can win this thing. There's going to be value on them for a top 10, especially with some of those longer shots too. So you're looking at plus money on obviously all of them for a top 10. DiBenedetto's plus 175, same as Dillon. These odds are obviously going to correlate to where they are to win. So McDowell is plus 225 for a top 10. Chastain plus 250. Corey LaJoie plus 350. So you don't want to take a shot to win. You still think they could run well. You can make money on a long shot in a top 10, and this is the week, I think, especially to do it.
One more. Here
we go.
who has the best Rick Ware Racing odds for top 10? Not even a win, just top 10.
We gotta stop with this Rick Ware stuff on this show.
Yeah, he's gonna hate us. He's gonna block us on Twitter.
It's Yaley, 200-1. So Jennifer Jo Cobb's replacement, JJ Yaley, is your Rick Ware favorite to win the race. He'd be plus 550 for a top 10 if you were curious. And we got to throw Cody Ware in here too, just because. All right, so Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, Joey Gase, Timmy Hill, and BJ McLeod are all 350-1 to win this thing. So there you go.
Take a flyer on him.
Or just Venmo Zach your dollar. Please.
Steer clear of betting on any of those guys he just said. Just don't.
Race props. Matchups are a thing I think it's tougher for me to get involved in this week a little bit. Now, where the odds fluctuate, I might be interested. But just because everyone's going to be running together this whole thing. And you don't know how it's going to shake out. You don't know who's going to get wrapped up in a big one. It's tougher enough to handicap Talladega as it is. Looking at matchups specifically, I think it only gets tougher. That said, if you're looking to fade Toyotas, which is something we have talked about, we know they're going to be at a disadvantage in terms of pit stops. But there being fewer of them, there are a few here where I think you can do that. Kevin Harvick is an underdog against Kyle Busch. I know we don't like Kevin Harvick either, but minus 109 to minus 122 in Busch's favor. Maybe you can get interested in that. Austin Dillon is also a short dog to Christopher Bell in a matchup head-to-head. And then Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse are even odds at minus 115. But that's one where I would lean Stenhouse, I think, there as well. In terms of looking at some other props, curious to get your thoughts on a little manufacturer and team odds comparison. I don't know that we'll find value amongst these, but it's interesting to note Ford is the manufacturer favorite at plus 145. Chevy plus 155, Toyota plus 250. And then we're looking at team of the race winner, and Joe Gibbs and Team Penske are co-favorites at plus 325. Now, obviously, Hamlin is Joe Gibbs, but I don't know. Interesting to see how those stack up there, where Toyota is such a long shot compared to the other two in manufacturer, which makes sense when you look at the amount of that manufacturer's car on the track that could win the race, because we did misspeak earlier. There are a couple of Toyotas down in the field. Harrison Burton is actually running the 96 Toyota for Gaunt Brothers Racing. And then Timmy Hill is also in a Toyota for MBM Motorsports. I don't think either of us see those guys winning. Zach did say Burton, not too bad, but probably not going to come up and win this race.
He might be a guy you want in DFS. I feel like that 96, whether it be Ty Dillon in the car or here with Harrison Burton, they know how to put together a plate car. I don't know how Dillon missed the field at the 500.
Yeah, he's Ty Dillon. So
what's wrong with Ty Dillon?
Maybe a little Bubba, kind of what you had earlier. But go ahead.
I guess we're just moving on to the next. Forget what I said.
Well, I need to hear your input here on these team of race winner manufacturer deal where you got Toyota as the dog, and then you got Joe Gibbs as a co-favorite with Team Penske, and I'm staying away from Gibbs there. I'll give you this, okay? I would rather play Hamlin at plus 650 than Joe Gibbs at plus 325 any day of the week.
Because you're double the money there, so it makes sense. And Hamlin would be the guy who he'd take up probably about 75% of the pie if you had to put a race projection thing on out of who would win out of JGR. I don't see it being Kyle Busch. I don't see it being Truex. Bell, maybe. That's a very, very slight maybe. But for the most part, it's at least 75% Bell. I mean Hamlin. Let me misspeak like that. But yeah, I said it was going to be Denny Hamlin winning anyways, so I'd still take Toyota, even though they're kind of behind the bar already because they only have 7 cars to Ford and Chevys, however the hell many they have. So
More
it's
like
kind of
6.5. So I don't know that Timmy Hill's keeping up.
yeah. That's
for
another
500
Rick Ware
miles
racing.
either.
That's another Rick
Well,
Ware
it's
racing car,
MBM,
bro.
but
Well,
Rick
you know
Ware
what I
does
mean.
not yet have a Toyota in the garage. We
Soon.
can confirm.
Soon.
It's coming soon. They might bring Dodge back too. Who knows? Yeah, I think what Zach said, and even if I'm looking at a Team Penske guy, or I like all 3 of those guys, I'd probably rather drop a few bucks on all 3 of them than play Team Penske at plus 325. You're just not going to have the value in a super speedway race where the driver odds individually are longer this week. Best finishing group, I did want to look at a couple of these down lower in particular. We've talked a lot about the favorites, but
we gotta give some love for the back markers of the
exactly.
maybe
And this
not
is
back markers, but you know what I mean.
Well, this is the week where they might not be back markers too. That's just it. So this one is for you, Zach, and then I'm going to get to another group that I was looking at earlier. Group F. We got to jump right down to the bottom here. The 6 groups over at DraftKings. We got Chris Buescher as plus 225 as the group favorite. And we have got Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez at plus 250 and Chase Briscoe plus 290. 2 of those guys you were wondering about when we were going over odds to win as maybe some long shots. Suarez running well. Buescher, I don't know what happened last week, but they're getting hyped for their new paint scheme at Kansas, right? What are you doing if you had to take one of those 4 for the best finish?
Chastain, immediately. I asked about Briscoe only because of how bad he's been this year, and I talked about it in my article last week. I don't understand how he's been that bad, and so I'm curious to how his odds are for that. Buescher, he hasn't been the guy that's really been plate racing to me. Like he hasn't been show off or anything like that. Just like Suarez, so I'd definitely go Chastain, especially after the 500.
Yeah, Buescher was one of those guys who did not finish at Daytona. Now,
probably. Was that thanks to Bell or?
I believe it was. I can't even remember, to be honest with you, how many cars got knocked out, but he finished 31st. So
probably,
yeah, definitely, because Blaney was involved in that, right? So Buescher was definitely involved. Thank you, Christopher Bell. Now, Tyler Reddick is one of Zach's well-known boys, and in Group E, he is plus 255, along with Bubba Wallace. Kurt Busch is the group favorite at plus 210. I'm going to be curious to see if you go against me here. And then we got Ryan Newman sitting at 3-1. And I'd be okay playing either Reddick or Newman in this group. In fact, I prefer both of them. Looking at Talladega driver stats, they're both up there in terms of average finish, and that's even recently. Of course, Reddick's only run here twice, but he has the skills on a plate race. He had heavy damage in that Daytona 500, but he's still limping around the track at the end. I think the 8's going to be able to keep the hood on the car this time and maybe have a little better shot to win a group.
Yeah, so, that was your favorite part, seeing the open hood like that.
I love it every time that happens.
We need to see more of that. But I got to go Reddick too. I mean, he's just too good. I feel like if he's going to get a win, it's going to be a track like this. Mark my words, it's going to happen eventually.
I think it will happen too. It could also happen at like a Homestead, but we're not going to be at Homestead the rest of the year. So we want this to happen in 2021. So we're both on Reddick there in Group E. Good stuff. There's one other question to conclude Talladega handicapping, whatever we're doing for this tapered spacer race. And that is, I was curious as to the DFS price on Kaz Grala. Because he didn't finish at Daytona, right? They had a fire under the car. They tried to go back out with the fire burning as they were coming out of pit road. But I was cautiously very optimistic what I saw out of not only Grala, but just out of Colleague racing at the 500. And I'm curious as to you, obviously it'll be a little price dependent, but do you think I'm nuts maybe taking a flyer on him where you can find it for betting, but also DFS? You're looking for a value play. I'd have to imagine he's pretty dirt cheap.
He's 5,000, which it's more than Chastain.
Wow.
He's got more than Chastain, LaJoie, Suarez, and Alfredo as like significant people who you probably might not think he'd be more than.
Really? All right, well, never mind. That's why Zach writes our DFS column, and I don't. So, make sure you go over to flurrysports.org. We'll have the DFS. We'll have the betting. We'll have trends. We'll have it all. Talladega, we are hyped. flurrysports.org in the NASCAR section, you can find all of our content. Zach, we got to wrap up here as we're nearing 70 minutes. But did want to dive into a little IndyCar with you as they opened their season last week. We also teased this segment earlier in the show, so we got to do it. Yeah. Alex Palou gets the win at Barber Motorsports Park. It was a pit strategy that ultimately worked out in Palou and Chip Ganassi's favor. They did the whole 90-lap race on the road course on 2 pit stops over the course of 90 laps. Now, Palou was not the fastest car in this race. He did very well as the tires aged both times before coming into the pit, turning fast lap times. I was super impressed. That being said, Pato O'Ward was the fastest car. Difference being, they took 3 pit stops. They were getting loose toward the end of the first run, and they brought him in. I believe it was maybe 21, 22 laps in. Palou stayed out to the 30-lap threshold, got it done in 2, and that was the difference. O'Ward rallied to finish 4th. Will Power took 2nd, Scott Dixon 3rd, and those were your 4 players down the stretch of this race. Was there anything, I guess, overall reactions that you had to this race? What of it you were able to take in as IndyCar gets their season going in what I thought was a very entertaining race? And those guys were coming for Palou, too, down the stretch. But he did a great job.
Yeah, Power and Dixon were definitely putting the pressure on Palou at the end there. But the other thing I really saw, which I just happened to click over at the right time, was the big wreck in lap 1. And holy balls, you want to talk about a big wreck. Newgarden got in the air. I think it was not Rosenquist. Someone got in the air. I couldn't tell who it was, like off the track. They both seemed like big hits. Glad to see that they were able to get out of the car okay. And it's just a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing there.
Yeah, Newgarden. So, Zach cut out of this show last week a little early because he had other obligations apparently that were more important than me.
My connection lost. Forget you.
Well, okay, we can forget me and you can finish this show yourself right now.
All right. Okay. Follow us on
No, we're not done here. Joseph Newgarden was the guy that I was talking about. As he had been so good at Barber Motorsports Park. In fact, he has won the last 2 races at this week's track, St. Petersburg, as well. He got incredibly loose right out of the gates on lap 1 and caused that big wreck. Took him out of the race. Took some other guys out of the race. Rosenquist, I believe, was able to get back out and run some laps, but didn't amount to much for them, obviously, finishing 21st. Highlight stuff. You should definitely go check out that highlight if you didn't see it, because I texted you right away, and I was like, well, they know how to start their season off with a bang, that's for sure. And it was right over the top of the hill there, too. So you were totally going into it blind, drivers who were coming from behind. And Newgarden, of course, was up front at the start of the race. So wild stuff indeed. Jimmy Johnson, IndyCar rookie, the face, I guess, apparently of IndyCar now, the way they're marketing him. He was able to avoid that wreck, but he did spin around pretty early on. I think it was like lap 10. Went a lap down, never recovered. Finished 19th in his IndyCar debut. He did finish the race. It was a few laps down at that point. He said his goal coming in was to just finish his first race running. He did that. So I'll give him a tip of the cap. I think IndyCar is going overboard, but we have a star come over. I guess I could see it. More on you, I guess, from regarding Jimmy Johnson, and also that parallel that we teased between NASCAR and IndyCar, which I'm sure some people have already noticed it, but cool to bring it up.
Yeah. I thought Jimmy would have done better. I don't know if it was because it was his actual first race in the IndyCar or whatnot, but especially when you have Chip Ganassi power under the hood, you're expected to do better, I want to say. And so 19th is kind of bad for him. I'm sure he'll rebound this week. But yeah, someone pointed out to me that Bowman wins in the number 48 the same day Jimmy Johnson makes his debut in IndyCar, and I just thought that was a cool parallel because the 48 gets back in victory lane for the first time in almost 4 years, the same day that Jimmy Johnson starts a new venture.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was the first win for Ally Bank on the 48 in Hendrick Motorsports 48, and Jimmy Johnson, it's the first step of what we're presuming and I guess hoping will be many. So we'll see where his open wheel career goes from here. In terms of St. Petersburg here this weekend, race 2, like I said, Newgarden has won each of the last 2 races here at the track in Florida. I don't know, is there anyone else that you are keeping a specific eye on this week for those that have access to betting odds? The main sports books here in the States, at least, not doing IndyCar odds other than the 500 is what I have gathered after last week and this week. You'd have to go offshore for them, and a lot of the offshore books aren't doing them either. But I guess as we head into the race, would there be anyone else that you're particularly keeping an eye on? Obviously, we want to see how Johnson does in run number 2. I'll be looking to see how Newgarden and I think Rosenquist to rebound after their little dust up last week. Wasn't really little, but anyone else that you'd be eyeing?
I'm going to say Alexander Rossi, only because I feel like he didn't win last year, and he's still looking for that win because he knows that he messed up a lot last year that he should have had a win. Excuse me. And so he's definitely hungry to end that losing streak.
All righty. There you go. That's about all we can do, really, because we don't have odds to reference. But we'll be tuning in for sure, and we like to fit IndyCar in here on the show each week. So all building up to that last weekend in May, which I've got that firmly marked in my calendar now after I was called out last week. Anything else before we get out of here, sir?
I'm all good on IndyCar, and then in NASCAR, just can't wait for the race.
Yeah, we are hyped. Talladega, baby, let's go. Did you want to do the closing since you tried to earlier? Or?
Okay. He is at Hangtime Sports. I am at ZT McAdoo. Follow the show on Twitter. We have a lot of NASCAR content on FlurrySports.org. We have our own little section. Come check us out because we definitely need the views because we want to keep that section up. So what? I don't need to know that. I saw what you did.
I'm done. Again, do not bet on Rick Ware Racing. Just Venmo Zach your dollar. You can check us out on the Flurry Sports Podcast Network too. We'll be up there every Friday going forward. Had a blast previewing Dega here today. Thank you, Zach, for going on this crazy ride once again as we are into double digits and it's on to the next milestone. This has been episode 10 of Burnt Rubber Racing, the podcast. We will talk to you next week. Enjoy Dega, everyone.